welcome to the first part of collaging your core true self. So we're going to collage. Goes along with your box number 4, which is getting to the true self. And we all have those parts of ourselves that are, my friend Nita calls them sort of like these calcified pockets of grief, maybe things that happen that we just kind of let dormant, and to get down to our selves that we recognize as who God made us to be, the truest version of ourselves, the best version of ourselves. So to get to that, we start out with your box number 4 had a gessoed panel. Gesso is just a primer for your surface. I didn't prime this because I sanded it down. That can also work because I'm just going to glue these elements down. So whenever I do collage, it becomes a spiritual practice for me. So I turn off the TV, turn off the music, maybe have the music playing. Just depends on what can help you get down, as Thomas Kelly calls it, to center down and just really be aware of yourself and your interior meeting with Christ's interior. It's the very most sacred place that your body holds. So when you get there, or maybe this will help you to get there, it goes both ways. Sometimes I feel centered and I feel divine presence with me as I do this, and sometimes this helps me get to that space. So wherever you are, there's no right or wrong way. Just bring yourself in who you are right now, what state you find yourself in, and just bring yourself to this process. And maybe we look for gifts in it. We ask for gifts in it. We ask for ourselves to be receptive, curious, and open to the gifts that God has for us. So the process of looking for words and images that you might want to include on this is really important, probably one of the most important parts of the process. So if you could, see if you can kind of let go of any agenda you might have or presupposed ideas for what might show up on this, and just be open and receptive. And if you're flipping through magazines or flipping through images and you see something that you're attracted to, that gets your attention, you don't have to have a reason for it, but notice yourself being drawn to something and cut it out. So what happens is, I don't know if you can see how thick this stack is. I cut at least 50 images, or just elements that I'm attracted to. So I start with at least 50, or I just keep going until I feel like I have more than what I need to work with. And then once you do that, I come in closer to all of those things that I've collected. I've learned some things about myself. I've learned, oh my gosh, I'm attracted to this color, or I'm attracted to this idea or these words. And it kind of informs myself of where I'm at. And I can ask myself, why am I so drawn to that? There might be some different reasons. And it's a really good inquiry into yourself. So once I get lots to work with, I kind of narrow it down and start making a composition on the page. I look at color, I look at content, I look at the things that I'm really drawn to. I'm finding here, now I've done one of these before. This is the one that I think that you all have access to in your box. This is very, if you look at the color palette, it's very soft. It's not real colorful. It's more grays, greens, oranges, charcoal. I don't know. Maybe that says something about where I was at the time. I didn't feel very colorful. I didn't feel very, I don't know, but they're right at the center of this labyrinth. There is a door. Actually, that's a window. But I wanted that to be in the center because I think at the time I didn't know what the future held in a lot of ways. I still don't, but that kind of had some mystery around it, and that felt like it needed to be in the center. So anyway, that was my process. But if you do more than one of these, which I highly suggest doing collages as often as you can. I try to do one once a month. Okay, so your next step is, once you have all your elements that you want to use, I try to cut everything down as close as possible. So like this butterfly, if I decide to use this butterfly, I think I decided not to because I've got a bee in there and that feels more true to me right now. But if I did use this, I would go in and take all of that extra space out around the butterfly and just cut close. It's tedious, and it's also a very contemplative practice. So notice yourself as you might be doing more tedious things. Do you feel, does it comfort you? Does it annoy you? Is it irritating? Is it too tedious? Or could you live there for a while and just let yourself be with it and see what gifts come? Anyway, so I just spend some time cutting things closer in. I might spell words. I might cut the words a little bit closer. And then once everything's cut and you start arranging it on the page, you can start gluing. So I just kind of preliminarily, is that a word? Preliminarily? Just lay things down on the page, and then you can arrange them until they feel good to you. Now keep in mind that you are going to put a labyrinth over top of your collage. So you might want to think about what is at the center and place it like that. Now I've already figured that out. Like, I want her to be at the center. I'm really drawn to color. Now this can be, sometimes it feels a little grandiose to sit here and make something about yourself and what you might think of yourself. But think of it as if you think back through your life and when you've been operating out of your higher self, what were things that you what things did you do that made you feel like you were connected to love? That you were deeply connected to the source of love, that you were loved and loving. Can you think of times in your life, or people in your life, or places in your life, or events in your life that made you feel that way, that you were the most alive? So I think about my love relationship with color, and I don't know, I just want this to be at the center because that's who I want to be. I want to be I want to have that kind of freedom. I want to have that kind of colorful reaction, response. I want to see things in a more colorful way with the freedom. She's so free and she's so beautiful and she's uninhibited and she allows just this, it's like she's this maker of color, or she's conjuring color, but she's putting it out into her world and making it more beautiful. So for me, I have a lot of elements here that kind of underscore the importance of beauty. That's always been important to me as a 4 on the Enneagram. One of our motivations as a 4 is to express beauty somehow and put it out into the world. That's like a real strong desire of mine, whether I'm painting or gardening, as I went along, one of the spaces in my life that make me feel alive, loved, and loving is when I cook for the people that I love. So I have a dessert table here. I've got a where are you? Here. This is a mint green KitchenAid. I have a KitchenAid in my kitchen, and I love it, and I use it all the time to make homemade bread and whipped cream and all the fun things. And that brings me great joy. So I feel like when I'm cooking for people, and it doesn't have to be cooking, it could be something where I'm doing something for the people I love that is expressing creativity, it's expressing beauty that others get to partake of. So that feels important to include in that. I've got paintbrushes here. Now, think about when you're thinking about this, there's our ego structure, but I'm talking about when we get down below our ego structure. So be careful about identity versus essence. And what I mean by that is anything that attaches worth to yourself by what you do, that's more of an identity. I identify myself as an artist. That's not who I am at the core, at the essence of myself. Essentially, I want to create things that are beautiful and put them out in the world. That's probably more true to my core self than it is to the specific ways that I put myself out in the world, like cooking or painting or gardening or organizing a kitchen, which is not my thing, but so just even notice like how you might identify yourself through your ego structure, which is different than how you are down below that space, where you are loved and loving, how you gain value because of who you are, not what you do. So there's a bit of a difference, but the things that you love and that you feel loved and loving when you engage in, those do make up who you are. So you can include them. Just be aware that you may not do that anymore in 5 years. It doesn't mean you've changed who you are essentially. Okay, so once you have your images kind of composed, then you can start gluing. So in your box, you should have had a little little container of Mod Podge. So Mod Podge is great for collage. It dries clear, so if you get any on top, that is totally cool. It'll dry clear, it will not dry white. You also should have gotten a 1-inch gesso brush. Now to glue, these bristles are too tall to actually, I don't like the way they handle when they glue. So I actually cut them down to about a 1/2 inch, to about right here. So I'm going to go ahead and cut my bristles down for gluing. Just going to let those fall in the trash can. And then I feel like I have more control with the gluing process, because your brush is more rigid and it's not as mushy mash. Okay, so I took some length off of that. And also in your box, you got some really cool vintage magazines. You should have gotten a National Geographic that's older, and you should have gotten one other magazine. I just chose. Hopefully you can find some really great images as you go through there. And I really hope you enjoy the process of looking for images and words or whatever you find in there. I have to share with you this one element. So also as a 4 on the Enneagram, I can go to dark places pretty quick. And the problem with that is that I get stuck there if I'm operating out of my ego structure. But if I can get down to the essence, what that offers out to people is that I can be with you in those dark places, and it's not as overwhelming because I'm familiar with those. So I can easily go to dark places. But I can see that as the upside, is that I can be with people in their pain. And that's something, if I am operating from a more essential truth of who I am, that's a gifting. That's the gifted part of being able to do that. So a couple years ago, I was cutting paper, and I have this habit of kind of leaving scrap paper on my cutting board because, I might not ever know when I want to use it or not. So this was on my cutting board, and it's just a piece of scrap paper that I left behind. But as I saw it, I was like, oh my goodness, that is an umbrella, and there is a grown-up hand holding the umbrella, and the other hand is holding a child's hand. And I just thought, oh, it's just a scrap piece of paper. I should have thrown it away, but I found it on my cutting board. So it's going in my collage because it feels true about me. So, and actually, this is probably the first element I'm going to put down. Yeah. So I just kind of want to, and I would encourage you to let things kind of, here, let me move this. Let things kind of roll off the page, because later when this dries, we'll slice it off so it'll be flush with the page. But you don't want to do this. You don't want to put it too far down and have unused space right there. So you want to put it over top, because we'll cut that. So that feels more important than leaving open space. All right, and gardening and landscape in place has become a really important theme for me. Gardening, I'll have to tell you about that piece later. Anyway, so I'm just going to kind of arrange these. Here's another. I found this one first before I found the scrap paper. So it was already along the same lines that I'm kind of prepared for what Ignatian calls consolation, desolation. I'm kind of prepared for my next season of desolation. And all that means, that's a season of not feeling love or feeling loving, because you feel like you've been disconnected. You know cognitively that you're not disconnected, that you're still in God's presence and His presence is here. But you're not sensing it. So that's called desolation. Consolation is when, even if you're in circumstances that are challenging or there's suffering involved, you still know you're connected to divine love. That's consolation. Desolation is when you could have great circumstances but feel very disconnected. And we all have those, and we all ebb and flow out of those, and those all come and go. But when we're in desolation, the comfort is we know that consolation will come again. When we're in consolation, we understand that that is not a sustainable space and that we will go back to desolation. But in both of those, we can find comfort either way. But this is my reminder that I don't always have to move into the desolate space, but it will come, and I have tools in my toolbox for when those come, and I have shelter and protection for myself and for others when those come. So this needed to be in there as well. I'm just kind of sharing with you my process. I would be so delighted to find out what shows up in yours. So yeah, I always start with the bigger pieces of paper first and glue those down. All right, so I know I want her to go in the middle. And here's this dessert table. Gotta have that in there because I love making desserts. And let's see. This is my paintbrush. That's an artist paintbrush, but that could mean any number of things. What are we going to paint today? Maybe we're going to paint the world. I don't know. We could be painting anything, not just a painting. Of course, I had to add a bouquet of flowers. That's a place I find beauty. Is flowers. And touch. Touch is very important to me. If it's important to you, well, even if it's not important to you, we all experienced these past 2 years, what it's like to not have that, to not have it in the way we just always expected. So I think that needs to go in there just because, so important. So this is a chair, just a sitting chair that looks really, really comfy. And that reminds me that, wow, okay, I get to rest if I want to. I feel so guilty when I rest. I don't know about you, but man, I have this thing where I never carve it into my schedule. It only happens if I'm just exhausted and I can't go longer. But I need to make that more of a priority. I want that to be something that I give myself as a human. Open. I need to put this in here. Open. Receptivity. Being open to what is and not trying to escape into a reality that isn't. But openness. I've discovered that when I'm open to the present moment, I'm operating out of my essential self and not the ego structure where I'm defending and bidding and grasping and those kinds of things. But being open is such a beautiful posture. Beauty. How can I create more beauty? How can I find more beauty? Am I missing the beauty that's right in front of me? Because it's a really important thing to me. I can't remember how I had this. I think I might move that up more. So yeah, as you're placing these down, nothing's set in stone until you glue it, right? So you can move things around. I'll put beauty right here. Yeah, right here. And then I need to include this bee. I drew this bee in graphite pencil, colored pastel, and I made a few copies of her because I visited a beehive, a bee farm with my friend who is a beekeeper and have fallen in love with the bees since that trip. So, and they're all the ones that do the work are the females. So, and they all work together, and I just thought that was a beautiful picture of female resilience. So I need to put her down. Oh, and the gratitude meteor. The gratitude meter. Not meteor. Wow, I don't know. Okay, the gratitude meter. For me, gratitude is a spiritual practice. And if I'm not being aware of all the things that I have to be grateful for, intentionally being aware of that, I can move in a not so great place. Naturally beautiful, we are a powerful blend of flavors. Our appeal is everlasting. I don't know, I just liked that. Okay, so I've got everything kind of situated where I want it. I can make adjustments as we go. Let's put you down here. So next thing is you want to start gluing the very bottom layers. So there's a lot of overlap with this paper. So I want to start gluing down the bigger pieces first. So I'm just going to pull this up, put it in the order it was. And start gluing. Now, if you have an old phone book or an old textbook or some like larger piece of a larger book with larger pages, that's very helpful. I'm just going to glue. I'm going to start with this piece and put it on the phone book page, just wherever there's a dry spot. And then with the gesso, I'm going to start from the center. Can you see this? I'm going to move it right here. I'm going to start from the center, and I'm just going to brush the glue on out to the corners, making sure that the whole surface is covered in glue. And pick it up, turn the page. There, now you don't have to clean up any glue. Okay, and then I'm just going to eyeball this. Place it. Okay, and then if you have a burnisher, if you don't have a burnisher, this is a bone folder. If you don't have one, just grab a spoon and you can burnish with a metal spoon. Okay, and you're just going to make sure all the wrinkles, the bubbles, all the things are out, and that it's glued from at the edges, because those are kind of the spots that get a little neglected. Okay, there's that. Then I'm going to glue this umbrella and these rain boots, probably way up top. Same thing, making sure everything's covered. Too long to glue that down, and it's not wanting to stick, so that's okay. I'm just gonna hit it with a little bit of glue. Okay, and then so on and so forth until you get where you want to be. Alright, so I'm going to stop this video and finish gluing the rest of my elements down. This is part 1 of making our labyrinth, so part 2 is coming up. So finish your collage and let it dry, and then we'll be ready to go on to the next step. Thank you so much, and I'll see ya back here.